Kang Jinhyuk was a hunter, but not the kind who made headlines or cashed in on fame. As a lowly D rank, the most he could count on were odd jobs and scraps left behind by the big guilds. He'd long since learned the harsh truth of this world. Power decided everything, and without it, even hunters could be trampled. That's why, when a strange sound echoed from his apartment and he went to check, he froze at the sight before him, a shimmering portal, pulsing with light, leading to another world crawling with monsters. They couldn't see him, but he could step through without harm. For a man with nothing left to lose, it wasn't just strange and scary. It was a chance to level up solo in his own exclusive dungeon. Every monster and every treasure here was his to claim, and with no one else to steal the rewards, Kang Jinhyuk finally had a way to rise to the top. With nothing left to lose, he takes a deep breath and steps through the portal, popping out on the first floor of a dungeon maze. He barely has time to look around before a goblin rushes at him from his left. He narrowly evades a stick to his face and dodges back into his attic. The goblin looks around confused and swings at the air. It seems like they really can't see the portal after all, and that means they can't come over to his side either. Now that he knows that, there's no reason to be scared. He equips a baseball bat and jumps back in through the portal to take the goblin head on. He swings the bat into the goblin's cheek, sending the creature flying, before following up with a stab to its chest. With the goblin defeated, he raises his bat and swings it down on its face, defeating it instantly. This was the first time he had ever hunted monsters alone, and since he didn't have to share experience points with anyone else, they were all his for the taking. With the goblin taken out, his level, which hadn't risen in 3 years, went up immediately. The goblin corpse was also his for the taking, and it could get him up to 3 million won if he sold it in the right places. The next day, he takes it to a hunter's market and tries to sell it off to a merchant. The man can tell that he doesn't have a lot of experience in dungeons because the way he handled the goblin significantly reduced the market value. Despite that, he still managed to get a price of over 3 million won, just like he hoped for. All he needed to do was provide the name of the area where he hunted down the goblin, and he would get the payment immediately. That was something Jinhyuk could not tell anyone. If someone found out about the dungeon in his attic, his profits could go down the drain. While he's trying to figure out a way to get out of the situation he'd found himself in, a group of hunters from the Black Dragon Guild come barging into the area like a pack of hyenas. Someone stole a kill from their territory, and they are not happy about it. At first they think it's Jinhyuk and step up to confront him, but the merchant redirects their attention to a blonde-haired hunter who's oblivious to the situation. The hunters step up to confront him and beat him up till he can barely move. He snuck into their territory and tried to hunt monsters there without permission. For all they know, he could be the serial killer they've been looking for. With the man barely able to talk, they drag him out of the building to continue their interrogation. That man who was beaten to a pulp could have easily been Jinhyuk. Seeing a scene like that and knowing that he won't be able to lie about where he got the goblin from, he changes his mind about selling there. He needs to find another way to sell his loot without having to deal with the thugs from bigger guilds if he didn't want his life to be at stake. As soon as Jinhyuk gets back home, he decides to dive back into the dungeon and work on getting stronger. Before he heads in, he has to arm himself with enough equipment to be able to survive a trip into such a dangerous place. He arms himself with a teleportation stone that will allow him to teleport out of danger and back to his apartment, as well as a monster tracking compass that reveals any monsters around him within a 50-meter radius. Armed with that, along with his trusty baseball bat, he steps into the dungeon for a round of leveling up. He goes on a killing spree, with each taking him up by 1 level. True to its name, the Goblin Labyrinth is filled with goblins. For someone with a low level like him, this was the perfect hunting ground to use and grow stronger. After a long day of hunting, his inventory capacity is almost filled to the brim. He has just enough space for 1 more goblin, and since it's the last one, he'd prefer if it was a large one that'd bring in more money. The compass shows a goblin approaching his location, which is perfect timing. All he has to do is hide and ambush it before it sees him. He hides around the corner and waits until just the right moment before swinging his bat right at the goblin's face. Except it isn't a goblin. He just hit a remarkable short man. The man shouts at him in a strange language that he can't understand. Jinhyuk hurriedly bows to apologize, which seems to calm the man down enough. He pulls out 2 necklaces from a bag and hands one to Jinhyuk. As soon as he puts it on, he can suddenly understand what the man is saying, and he realizes 2 things. First, this man is very angry at him, which is fair considering that he just smashed a bat into his face. And secondly, this man isn't a man, he's a dwarf, a mythical race that he's only heard about in fantasy novels. The angry dwarf continues to yell at him while he helps to pick up the items that got scattered around. Everything he picked up seemed to be really high quality, but he barely got any time to admire them while being yelled at. The dwarf notices his bat and picks it up. He demands to know where Jinhyuk got it from, which confuses the young man. There's nothing special about it, but the dwarf seems very determined to know. It's just an ordinary aluminum baseball bat, but the dwarf seems to think it's made up of some kind of highly precious metal named orichalcum. This ordinary bat is so valuable to the dwarf that he believes no amount of money would be able to buy it. He offers Jinhyuk a trade of some of his rare items in exchange for the bat, and seeing no reason to refuse, he follows the dwarf back to his workshop. The dwarf takes the bat deeper into his workshop while Jinhyuk looks around the place. He glances at the weapons laid around the workshop and wonders which one he should pick, but the dwarf returns soon after with his new and improved baseball bat. For some reason, it's shining a bright red color and glowing slightly. Jinhyuk wonders if this is really his bat after all, but the dwarf confirms that that's just one of the traits of orichalcum. It starts out as a soft and weak metal, but then it turns into a strong and durable material the more you enchant it. That word catches his eye. It seems that somehow the dwarf had enchanted his weapon. An enchanted item is a very rare item that only drops from very rare high-level monsters of A grade and above. Just testing out a few swings with the new bat confirms that it feels completely different that he remembers. It's almost impossible to believe that something as strong as this could be artificially created. This dwarf, as well as this whole dungeon, really could be the lucky break that he's been searching for this entire time. He checks the stats in a status menu. The bat is now a legendary baseball bat with S-grade durability and automatic retrieval. His once common aluminum bat has become a rare and legendary item. If he could sell the item, he would make a jackpot, but the bat is already bound to him, so he can't sell it anymore. The dwarf added the automatic retrieval enchantment to the bat, meaning that no one other than him will ever be able to use it. In the end, he can't make any money from it, but it's still a legendary item nonetheless. And even then, there are still other ways to make money. He has an inventory full of goblin corpses that he can sell for a profit. The only problem is there's nowhere to sell them without getting unwanted attention from guilds. The only other option is the hunter industry's black market. They don't ask questions and they deal with corpses efficiently. On top of that, it's really easy to get in touch with them. They always hand out business cards to lower-level hunters who need money, which means he already has a lot of these cards to use. He heads home and uses a card to find the address of one of these black markets. The business card looks incredibly shady, but right now, he doesn't have any other choice. While he's searching around for any sign that this place exists, a man calls down to him from above. His name is Deputy Cho Hyung-il, and he invites Jinhyuk to his office to meet their boss. He meets with Lee Jun-chul, who's a loan shark, currently disguised as a loan agent, who also trades monster corpses on the black market. They ask to inspect the corpses first before discussing payment, and Jinhyuk brings them out to show. The two are shocked by the number of corpses Jinhyuk brings out from his inventory. Despite the fact that Jinhyuk is clearly just a newbie, he managed to get up to 20 goblin corpses. They are all in incredible condition too. The heads are bashed up from baseball bat injuries, but other than that, they look perfect. So perfect, in fact, that Deputy Cho can't hide how excited he is to receive them. The three men negotiate prices, but are interrupted by black market merchants running in to announce that a monster had shown up in the area. There's a rare chance that a monster's corpse can attract monsters, and it seems laying out 20 fresh goblin corpses on the ground was more than enough to send out a beacon to monsters. What's worse, the monsters that had appeared were two orcs, which were way out of Jinhyuk's league at the moment. At this rate, the only thing he can do to save himself would be to take the monster corpses and escape as fast as he can. However, it was already too late. The first monster had made it to them and looked ready to tear them apart. Since Jinhyuk was the only hunter around, he was the only person strong enough to take them on. That doesn't mean he could take them on though, and the orc charges at him with its battle axe. He dodges the first swing, but the second swing comes down straight for his head. At such a close distance, there was no way for him to avoid it. It seemed like this was the end for him, and he was about to die pathetically. That's until his newly enchanted bat summons itself from his inventory and blocks the attack just before it can connect. The parry was so strong, it sent the orc flying back for a second. This seems to be another one of its enchantments, the presence detection effect. If that was the case with this new bat of his, then he just might stand a chance. The orc charges in again, but Jinhyuk is more confident and ready this time. He grips the bat and aims downward, right at the orc's knee, causing it to lose balance. Then with the monster disoriented, he launches another attack at its face, cracking its neck and killing it instantly. Just killing a single orc caused his level to jump from 24 to 36 in one quick spike. He doesn't have any time to celebrate as the second orc finds them and rushes at him. This time though, he's ready. He dodges the attack, then runs up behind it and smashes his bat into the orc's back, before repositioning and sending one last attack straight to its head, also killing it instantly. With that, he managed to easily kill two orcs in a matter of seconds. That shows just how powerful this enchanted weapon really is. Now that the commotion is over, he smugly asks the men to restart negotiations and add the corpses of the two dead orcs to their deal. That day, he went home with a chip on his shoulder. Somehow, he had managed to convince the men to give him 15% more than the market price. The amount of money in his bank account almost felt like a dream. Now that he had finally taken care of those goblin corpses, all he had to do was focus on hunting. Because he saved the black market dealer and his crew, they decided to continue doing business with him, which means that he'll never have to worry about where to sell the corpses again. That's because he probably realized that Jinhyuk isn't just a low-level thief who's selling stolen corpses. He's actually a high-level hunter that's strong enough to take down two orcs with little effort. But even with his enchanted bat and his newfound strength, there was no way his current equipment would let him hunt down higher-grade monsters. There was only one option left for him to upgrade, and if he plays his cards right, he might even get some equipment for free. The next day, he had bought a crate full of beer cans and alcohol for the dwarf. Since he liked aluminum so much, then this was like a gold mine to him. The dwarf can't believe that everything in the crate was filled with orichalcum. He tried the beer, but spat it out immediately. The taste was horrible. To calm him down from another shouting match, Jinhyuk passed him some soju instead. This one is different, and the taste is enough to satisfy the dwarf for now. But it's not enough. There could be something more to give it the kick he's looking for. Since the opportunity had come up, the dwarf made a request to Jin-hyuk. He needs to have something mined out for him. He sends Jin-hyuk on a quest to mine out some mithril ore. But what does ore have to do with alcohol? Well, Jin-hyuk wanted some free gear, so it's not like he had any choice of what he had to do to get it. If this was the best way to get the gear, then so be it. He journeyed further into the labyrinth and emerged at a clearing in a forest. This place is much larger than he thought. A system menu pops up in front of him, telling him that he had made it to the second level of the labyrinth. Now he had the opportunity to record his location as a warp point. He had no idea what a warp point was, but he accepted the option regardless. That causes a gate to open up in front of him. This portal allows him to travel between the first and second floors easily, just like a video game. With that set up, he journeyed deeper into the labyrinth to find the mithril ore he's been sent to get. The second floor was called Dogs and Skeletons, and just like the first floor with goblins, this floor was filled with wild monster dogs jumping out at him. These dogs were way weaker than the orcs he fought just a few days ago, meaning that they were all free experience points for him. He readies his bat and charges headfirst into a pack of dogs aiming for him. By the end of the fight, he had killed 25 orcs and gathered their corpses. Going by the market value, these corpses should net him a nice 200 million won. But he can't let the excitement of all the money get to his head. He still had a mission to mine some mithril ore. He journeys deeper into a dungeon and gets confronted by skeletons. This floor was called Dogs and Skeletons after all, and skeletons are an annoying set of monsters. Their bodies can't be sold for money, and the only way to defeat them is to break their core. That makes this fight all the more painful to sit through, especially since there are a lot of them coming at him. But with his current skills and level, there was no way he wouldn't be able to take them out. By the end of the fight, he's tired and realizes that the dwarf probably sent him here because he didn't want to have to deal with these annoying monsters himself. Still, there's one good thing to come out of this. Killing these skeletons had raised his level to 100, which means that he'll now be able to change classes. His class will be automatically chosen based on his previous actions. With how much fighting he had been doing recently, he would definitely become some sort of berserker or a warrior. Instead, the system deems him to be a cleric. He carries on and manages to gather the mithril ore that the dwarf wanted. That's surprising since the dwarf didn't expect Jin-hyuk to make it out of that experience alive. He may be alive, but he's exhausted from all the fighting he had to go through. Well, even with that, it's not like he came out from the encounter completely empty-handed. He managed to swipe some mithril ore for himself since it looked expensive, then he gave the rest to the dwarf. Since he managed to get the ore, the dwarf agrees to use some of it to make anything he wants. Since he already has a great weapon, the next thing he needed was some kind of armor to withstand heavy attacks from monsters, preferably something lightweight that should be easy to hide. The dwarf agrees and gets to work immediately. The process takes much longer than Jin-hyuk can wait for, so he goes back home to take a nap for a few hours. He wakes up, half a dozen hours later, and goes back to the workshop to check on the dwarf's progress. By then, he's done making the armor, and he seems satisfied with it. It's mithril chainmail armor that should easily fit under his shirt and hoodie. He tries it on, and without warning, the dwarf attacks him with a hammer to his chest. There's no better way to explain something than with an explanation after all. That attack would normally have broken his ribs at least, but thanks to the armor, he barely felt anything. With armor as strong as this, as well as his legendary baseball bat, his combat abilities had skyrocketed. Meeting this dwarf was definitely the stroke of luck he needed to turn his life around. That's not all he had prepared, however. Next, the dwarf brings a large barrel to give him. It's the soju he had brought earlier. Jin-hyuk goes back to his apartment and tries it out for himself. The dwarf was right. Just storing the soju in a barrel made out of mithril ore turned the soju into an entirely different drink. Something this amazing gave him a great idea. He calls the black market dealer again and promises him another deal. This time, he's selling kobold corpses and fine quality liquor. At another part of town, the Titan Guild have just concluded their training by some newly opened gates. They should be done, but a sudden new wave of lizard men flood through the gates. It seems like it's an anomaly gate, and 3 times more enemies pour out than they have just defeated. One of the guild members suggests calling for help from another guild, but Ndoyen, the deputy guild master, can't let his pride go by calling others for help. He urges his subordinates to hold their ground and fight. Jin-hyuk, on the other hand, is not having nearly as hard of a time. He just officially got his class registered as a cleric, and on top of that, he was promoted from D rank to C rank. Clerics are a rare class of healers, and it's well known that top guilds usually seek them out. That means he might now be able to be recruited by a guild. Suddenly, a bloodied and beaten-up hunter barges through the doors looking for a cleric. Jin-hyuk raises his hand and volunteers as a cleric, and the man takes him back to the site where the Titan Guild members are taking in the hordes of lizard men. He's told to stand in the back line and heal as many people as he can with the other clerics. He wants to help in other ways, but the guild member assures him that all he has to do is stand in the back and heal them, then he'll get paid accordingly when the fighting is done. The healers being in the area is enough to support the guild members and give them a second wind to keep fighting on. But the waves are just too much for them to handle, and one of the other clerics suggests calling in a supporting guild to help take them out faster. At this rate, they'll all be wiped out if they don't do something. Just as he's thinking on what to do next, he feels a hostile presence behind him. His bat had just saved him from a fatal strike by one of the lizardmen. It somehow got past all the hunters and was trying to take out the healers starting with him. That means that the back ranks of their defense had been breached. There's only clerics at the back line. If these monsters got through them, they'd wipe out the guild members in an instant. Left with no other choice, Jin-hyuk grips his bat and swings at the lizardman that attacked him, sending him flying with a single attack. He informs the other clerics that there's been a breach and he's the only one that'd be able to block them. They got this far behind them thanks to a concealment technique, and now they were trying to ambush them from behind. Jin-hyuk instructs the clerics to focus on healing for now and to leave the lizardmen to him. It would be difficult, but he was the only one that could stop them. The other clerics are worried about him since they think he's just an ordinary healer like them. Jin-hyuk, on the other hand, rushes in to take them head on, telling them not to worry about him. He wouldn't be saying these kinds of things if he wasn't at least a bit confident in his abilities. Of course, even though he said all that, he was still nervous about the whole thing. But in the end, he actually managed to hold his ground against the rampaging monsters. One of them manages to get past him while his guard is down and heads straight for one of the other clerics. Jin-hyuk chases after it, then leaps off the ground and manages to stop it from attacking one of the clerics just in time. His rushed attack leaves him open to a stab from behind, but thanks to the dwarf's chain armor, it barely affects him. The monster is surprised that their attack didn't work, and Jin-hyuk takes that opportunity to counter with a bat swing to his face. Somehow he's actually holding them off by himself. Thanks to him, they can focus on healing without worrying about any sneak attacks. But that's not the only thing going in their favor. The lizardmen freeze as a new fighter enters the battle. Suddenly, a strong man joins in and takes out one of the monsters with a single hit. This newcomer is Seo Sang-ho, the guildmaster of the Titan Guild. He acknowledges Jin-hyuk and asks if he was the one that took out all the monsters in the area. The C-rank hunter admits that he was the one who took out the monsters, but he's more confused about who this new powerful man was. The clerics are surprised that he doesn't know the S-rank hunter Sang-ho. He's so powerful that thanks to him being there, it looked like the battle was about to come to an end. With no time to waste, he rushes off to join his subordinates in battle, but not before promising to properly reward Jin-hyuk for his assistance later. Just at a glance, it's obvious to anyone including Jin-hyuk that S-rank hunters were in an entire league of their own. When he's around, he becomes the real monster in the battle. He lands right in the middle of the fight and his presence immediately lightens everyone's spirits. All except Endoyen, who seems annoyed that the guildmaster showed up. There was nothing wrong with a fellow guild member coming in to give support, but Endoyen's pride wouldn't let him accept that. Sang-ho immediately takes charge of the situation. He passes orders across to the fighting hunters and immediately commands the attention of everyone around him. With that done, he doesn't wait for the guild members to clear the area and launches a powerful attack on the ground, which creates a shockwave that sends all the lizard men flying. His one single strike was enough to take out a lot of them in a single stroke. In a matter of minutes, with Sang-ho's help, all the monsters are easily taken out. Now that he was sure that his guild members were safe, he takes Endoyen by the jacket to reprimand him. What was he thinking when he decided to put his life and the lives of his subordinates at risk by taking on the monsters alone? He claims that he just wanted to protect the guild's reputation, but Sang-ho knows the truth is that Endoyen just wanted to protect his own pride. The two have a short stare-off until one of the guild members reminds him that he needs to dismiss the clerics that helped to clear the scene. The guildmaster calms himself down and goes over to address the hunters and thank them personally. Especially Jin-hyuk, who is the main reason so many people made it out alive today. As a token of gratitude, he offers to allow him to enter the guild immediately without having to go through a registration process. That's something that Endoyen cannot accept. He quickly comes in to put down Jin-hyuk as a mere D rank that only got lucky. Sang-ho, on the other hand, does not hesitate to remind him that this mere former D rank saved so many lives that would have been lost if it wasn't for his stubbornness. Then he forces Endoyen to apologize to Jin-hyuk, which is already a big blow to the deputy guildmaster's pride. Even with that, Jin-hyuk respectfully declines the offer. He doesn't want to be part of any guild that allows people like Endoyen to have any type of authority. That's the last straw. Endoyen rushes at him with an enhanced punch, but a defensive bat straight to his stomach is enough to stop him in his tracks. The hit is enough to knock Endoyen out cold immediately. The occasion is such a noticeable moment that it appears in a news article by the next day. The higher-ups of the Titan Guild can't stand what happened to Endoyen. Not only was he publicly embarrassed by a mere C rank, he was also demoted from his authority as a deputy guildmaster. They demand that the C rank appears before them to explain himself. Sang-ho, on the other hand, doesn't agree with that. Not only did Endoyen risk the lives of multiple guild members for the sake of his pride, he also attempted to attack someone who fought for their guild. That's more than enough reason for him to be demoted. That manages to shut down the people gathered. With nothing else to say to the men, he sends them on their way. The guildmaster's mind wanders back to the extraordinary C rank that he saw the other day. Before he grows any stronger, he has to get Kang Jin-hyuk to join his guild no matter what. The man in question lounges lazily in his apartment enjoying a drink while looking through his expenses. Since he made a lot of money from hunting, he had spent more than he usually would, which put the expenses at an absurd high. If he knew things were going to turn out this way, then he would have accepted the extra pay that the Titan Guild was offering him. At the end of the day though, it doesn't matter since he has a much better way to earn money. After some much needed relaxation, he heads back into the dungeon to collect more monster corpses. Hunting the same old monsters isn't enough for him anymore. Now that he had gotten stronger, he was going to need some stronger opponents. He walked deeper into the second floor than he usually would, and found himself facing off against a small army of orcs. One of them tries to attack him from behind, but he successfully sidesteps the attack before retaliating with an attack of his own. The hit defeats the orc immediately right as several others swarm around him through the hall. Just a few days ago, he would have been dead on the spot, but thanks to his new equipment, he's able to defeat all of them with ease. By the end, he counts up a total of 20 orc corpses, which should net him enough money to not have to worry about anything for a whole year. Since he still had a lot of stamina left, he decides to head a little deeper into the dungeon and finds himself entering the third floor named as the Temple Guardian's Labyrinth. At first glance, there don't seem to be any monsters in the area, but the sense of calm is almost immediately broken by a large tremor shaking the ground. A giant hand bursts out from beneath him, and Jinhyuk only barely manages to move out of the way. The hand belongs to a stone golem, which is an artificial monster built from mana. Its attacks are too fast for him to dodge, and they are so powerful that even when he blocks it, he still gets pushed back by a large amount. That leaves him with very little option but to try his best and fight back. The golem seems to be incredibly strong, but it lacks the intelligence to make use of that strength. Jinhyuk takes advantage of this and manages to land an attack on its head, shattering it to pieces and causing the creature to fall. But it doesn't take much time for it to start reforming once again. Jinhyuk forgot a crucial point of the golems. It can only be defeated by completely breaking its core. Realizing this, he tries to dodge back and create some distance to re-strategize, but the monster manages to regenerate hand fast enough to catch him before he can escape. There weren't many ways he could escape this trap, but then suddenly an arrow flies in and strikes the golem in its chest. Jinhyuk sees the opportunity and follows up with a sharp jab from his bat, breaking the golem's core and defeating it once and for all. He managed to make it out of that situation alive thanks to the random stranger that saved him with that arrow shot. He turns around to thank his savior, but he's shocked when instead of seeing the dwarf which he expected, he sees a beautiful-looking woman with some strange-looking ears. Those ears mean she's actually an elf. He bows his head and thanks her for saving him, but doesn't notice the elf rushing at him while his head is down. He only gets a second to see her before she grabs him by the collar and pulls him close for an interrogation. She hasn't seen him in this dungeon before. She's curious about who he is and where he came from. The elf clearly isn't from Jinhyuk's world. She doesn't know where he's from, and his outfit looks unfamiliar to her. She asks him a barrage of questions while he struggles to free himself from her grip. She eventually lets him go after he mentions that he entered the dungeon today. That means that he knows where the dungeon entrance is. She pushes him on the ground and drops her bow. She has finally found a way out of this dungeon. Jinhyuk stands up and demands to know what's going on with her being needlessly aggressive. The elf ignores him and instead demands that he takes her to the exit. He's not impressed by her just giving him orders out of nowhere. She's really pretty though, so he'll let it slide for now. She mentions that if he successfully guides her out of the dungeon, then she will adequately compensate him. After all, she's a platinum-ranked mercenary, so he can trust her. Her name is Lucia, and she's a half-elf that prides herself on being pretty famous. Surely he had heard of her from somewhere. Jinhyuk, though, has no idea what she's talking about or who she is. She repeats that she's a platinum-ranked mercenary and shows him her badge, but he still has never seen or heard of any of these things before. Did he come from some kind of rural area? How does he not know what the badge is or who she is? He tells her that he's from Seoul in Korea. It's her turn to be confused by the names he's calling, and she realizes that the crazy mage might have actually succeeded in his dimension-hopping spell. She tells him of her suspicions. In simple words, a mage from her dimension cast a spell on this dungeon that caused it to hop over into his. Something like that doesn't sound possible at all, but it appears that this is exactly what happened. However, since it was a dimensional shift, that means that reversing the magic will allow her to return to her world. Jinhyuk had felt that something was odd, but it turns out that this dungeon isn't even from this world. If this place returns to its original location, that could be a big problem for him. He asks her if she plans to send the dungeon back right now, but she can't. It would be too difficult to reverse the magic here, but there's a potential location that would be helpful. It's a hidden room on this floor that she found a long while ago while searching for an exit. She asks for his help getting there and promises to reward him for his help in getting there. The conditions don't seem too bad, so he agrees to help her reach the hidden room. They head there and fight a few orcs on the way. Jinhyuk notices that she's a lot stronger than he thought she'd be. That arrow she fired earlier was also no joke. Fighting her here would be a disadvantage for him. His safest bet would be to cooperate with her and continue to assess the situation. After a little more walking, they decide to rest at a safe spot. Jinhyuk had packed some chocolates in his pockets for emergencies, and he hands her one to eat. She takes a liking to it immediately and demands for more, and after eating through his whole supply, she asks for even more. That was unfortunately the last one, and she accepts and seems satisfied enough to continue the journey. Eventually, they reach a large room that holds the boss of the dungeon. Lucia believes that there's a chance for the mage's spell to be in that room. To investigate, they'll need to take down the boss and free up the room. She tells him that he doesn't have to do much of anything. All he has to do is help her finish it off once she takes it down. They open the door, and the monster immediately lets out an angry roar before attacking. Lucia charges up an arrow and aims straight at the boss's chest. She tells Jinhyuk to watch her closely, then she uses a technique called aura to increase the impact of her attack. She fires the arrow and it hits the boss head on, knocking it onto its back immediately. Just one of her attacks was enough to bring it down, despite how huge the armored monster was. This is the technique she's going to teach him. But first, he has to finish up the monster before it gets up again. Just like with the golems, he has to aim for the core to take it out. He jumps onto the fallen creature's chest and bashes his bat right into where he believes the core should be. One hit doesn't seem to be enough to bring it down though, and a large fist rushes at him from the side. He narrowly blocks it with one of his cleric skills, the Holy Shield. Then he uses his momentum to push himself back onto its chest. If one hit isn't enough to bring it down, then he'll just keep bashing it until it stops moving. Eventually, he busts the core open and the creature is finally defeated. He levels up again, almost reaching 200 at this point. Now that the creature is defeated, he returns to Lucia and asks her to teach him how to use Aura. But he already used Aura. His Holy Shield skill transformed his Holy Cleric power into Aura. To him it was just a class skill, but she doesn't know what that is. Besides that, if he can use skills like that, then it seems he will be able to learn how to use Aura faster than she thought. Since he has the potential to wield it well, that means that he might even be able to start enhancing his attacks with Aura right away. But first, there's a condition. She sends him back to get more chocolates for her. Back in the city, Sang-ho walks alongside his secretary Lee Hyena and discusses a new anomaly that appeared near Gangnam Station. It was detected yesterday, meaning that they have about 5 days to prepare before a powerful monster appears there. No matter how Sang-ho pictures it, there's no way his guild is going to be able to take it on by themselves. However, all the other major guilds have been dispatched overseas, meaning that the Titan Guild is the only one left in Korea to fight. Hyena will continue searching for capable hunters who are freelancing locally, but none of them seem reliable. Sang-ho, however, already has his sights set on someone else. In fact, coincidentally, that person just happened to be crossing the other side of the street. He excuses himself from his conversation with his secretary and chases after Jinhyuk. He's carrying home a large box of snacks that the elf asked him to get when the guildmaster's voice catches his attention. He offers his proposal to join Titan Guild once more, but Jinhyuk doesn't have any plans of changing his mind. In that case, Sang-ho offers Jinhyuk a job as a mercenary. That way he can still work for the guild, but he won't be a part of it. The rewards are also substantial. That sounds more interesting, but Jinhyuk promises to only think about it. He returns to the dungeon and presents the snacks to the elf. She happily eats them all, and it's obvious that they don't have this kind of food in her world. After her hearty meal, Jinhyuk asks her why she's eating down in the basement when they have already defeated the boss monster. She points up at a magic circle on the ceiling and tells him that it connects the dungeon to the world he lives in. Because of it, she'll be staying down there for the time being to study it. So if he wants to learn more about Aura, he's going to need to bring her more chocolates. Now that she is done eating, she takes his hand to teach him how to use Aura. Firstly, she'll have to pour her aura into his body to show him what it feels like. Jinhyuk immediately feels the power flowing into him. Lucia also notices the spike of power in his body after she poured in her aura. He seems to have more talent for it than she originally expected. The movement of holy power following through his body is impressive enough that she believes he will be able to grasp the basics by the end of the day. She commends him for his talent and asks him if he can remember the flow of aura in his body. He's confident that he can, and she acknowledges him before turning to leave the dungeon. She was supposed to investigate the magic circle first, but it seems like it would be faster to fully train him on how to use aura. And the best way to do that is through practical experience. She takes him to a different part of the dungeon and throws him into a horde of monsters. He fights an army of goblins and kobolds at once, but manages to hold his own against them while collecting their corpses as well. He turns to Lucia and asks her why he suddenly has to fight a horde of monsters when she told him that he would be learning how to use aura. She tells him that this is how he will learn how to use aura. Even though she infused a bit of mana into his body so he can get a feel of it, he's going to have to sense the rest on his own. And to do that, all he has to do is get the hang of activating aura using his holy power. And there's no better way to get the instinct for it than in the middle of real combat. He's more upset that she didn't tell him any of that, and instead just threw him into the action with no warning. While they're fighting, the ground starts to shake, and a stone golem emerges from the ground. It lets out a loud roar and pushes Jinhyuk away as Lucia continues to explain that he needs to face a true crisis to be able to unlock his potential. All he has to do is focus and try to feel the holy power coming from the shield he generates with his skill. The shield is made out of aura, so once he gets the hang of it, he'll be able to pick it up quickly. That's easier said than done since he doesn't consciously activate the holy shield. How is he supposed to feel any aura from something that turns on automatically? The monster brings down a huge fist towards Jinhyuk, and he blocks it with the holy shield once again, but this time, he feels something. It's some kind of energy gathering around his left hand, which was the hand that's activating the skill. This must be what holy power feels like. The monster pills back and attacks again, and Jinhyuk summons his holy shield again. Except this time, it has a different shape than what he remembers. The sensation of summoning the shield is also different. This must be mana. The golem doesn't give him time to figure all this out and smashes down on the shield, sending Jinhyuk flying back. Lucia mocks him from her podium. She told him to get the hang of his skill, not to make foolish mistakes. He was just doing what she told him to, though. As he prepares for another attack, a status window appears in front of him. He has acquired a new skill called Holy Power Application. This skill allows him to use Holy Power, and to use the energy to enhance his attack and defense based on how much Holy Power is used. This means that there are ways to gain skills beyond getting a job change. Lucia notices him spacing out and decides to take matters into her own hands. It seems that facing a golem while learning aura was too much for him, so she offers to take care of it from there. Jinhyuk, on the other hand, quickly recovers himself and tells her to stand down. Now that he has a grasp over his new powers, he should be able to take care of everything. He charges at the golem, then leaps off the ground, narrowly dodging another stone fist aiming right at him. Then while in the air, he focuses his mana into the bat, then uses a front flip to gain more momentum before bringing the mana-enhanced bat down onto the golem's head. The monster falls, but he's not satisfied yet. He lands on its chest and focuses one more, trying to divert even more mana into his bat before bringing it down right onto the golem's chest, unlocking a new skill at the same time called Holy Aura. With his enhanced weapon, he stabs the golem with his bat and successfully breaks the core. By unlocking his Holy Aura, it also allowed him to gain new skills like Precision Strike and Unyielding. Thanks to Lucia's training, he was able to unlock 2 passive skills and an active skill. She, however, is more concerned about the fact that he learned how to use aura in battle so quickly. She was expecting to just teach him the basics and call it a day, but with this, she has to see things to the end. She takes one of her arrows and brings down a wall, opening up the area to an even larger horde of monsters. Jinhyuk is not impressed, but he readies his bat and prepares for another battle. The battle with the monsters in the dungeon took a lot out of him, and by the time he goes to sell the monster corpses, he's exhausted. He's so tired that the black market boss Jun Chul notices when they meet. He looks like he has just been through a war. Jun Chul decides not to ask too many questions and gets down to business by accepting the monster corpses. He also brings up the topic of the alcohol he sold to them last time. He marketed them as traditional artisan soju, and since it went on the market, orders have been flooding in. With how popular the drink became in such a short time, he could focus on selling liquor and never have to worry about money again. With enough money to last him for the rest of his life and a small business set up already, Jinhyuk heads home to rest. His training with Lucia has left him immensely tired, and only seconds after laying down in bed, he passes out immediately. Not long after, he's woken up by the sound of a disaster alert. A loud automated voice urges everyone on the street to evacuate and get to safety. Today is already the day of the monster invasion. It seems to have come early this month. Monster invasions usually happen randomly, but there is a certain invasion that happens after a set period of 1 month. This invasion is pretty common, and usually Jinhyuk would use this opportunity to catch some low-level monsters for some loose change. This time though, he's too tired to care. The large guilds will take care of them anyway, so he shouldn't have to move a finger. At least that was the plan until a notification came in on his phone informing him that due to the urgency of the invasion, the rewards for monsters would be tripled. With triple the rewards up for grabs, Jinhyuk can't ignore the invasion anymore. He steps out onto the street to see what if he can take some down and cash in. Meanwhile, security officials guide people and try to clear the streets while the Titan Guild battles hordes of monsters running through the city. The security line is already breaking due to the number of monsters trying to get through, and Sang-ho is running out of stamina to keep up the fight. No matter how many he takes down, more just keep popping up. The guild members are already at their limits, and even though it looks like they have the upper hand, things aren't looking too promising. The guild secretary watches the fight worriedly from behind safety. Even though it looks like everything is going well thanks to the guild master, she can tell that they're getting stretched thin. If only they had one more powerful hunter to turn the tide. Her mind wanders to a man that the guild master had found promising not too long ago. She takes her phone and calls Jinhyuk. He's in the middle of fighting some goblins when he picks up. She offers him a chance to fight with the Titan Guild, and in return, he will get heavily compensated. He asks for 5 times the normal compensation, and she suggests that they meet at a predetermined place to discuss more. When they meet, she offers him 4 times the compensation instead, and he reluctantly agrees. With that, she gives him a device that'll keep track of how many monsters he kills, so that they can keep track of how much he did for the guild. If he makes a more than average contribution to the fight, then he will get everything he's asking for. Now that he's gotten a chance to show off his abilities and get proper payment for it, he takes off towards the fight to provide help. Hyena watches him leave reluctantly and wonders if he will live up to the expectations that Sang-ho has of him. He was once able to take down Endoyen by pure luck, but his skills are still uncertain. He arrives on the battlefield and immediately goes after a rampaging ogre, which shocks the entire crowd. He manages to kill it in one quick strike, which makes everyone else think that he has to be at least an A-rank hunter. A rank is close, but Jinhyuk believes that with his current abilities, he has to be stronger than an A rank. He takes a moment to drink a mana potion and recharge. Thanks to Lucia's intense training, he has managed to reach level 200. Normally, he wouldn't be able to face an ogre, but as long as his mana doesn't run out, he should be able to keep up with an S-rank hunter. And right now, he has over 1,500 mana potions, which means that all the monsters around him right now were nothing but money makers. Elsewhere, Endoyen takes down monsters alongside his guild members. He notices that the monsters are dramatically decreasing and turns to see a group watching someone take down monsters with ease. He checks on them himself and sees the one person he hates the most right now. He yells orders to the stunned hunters and tells them to stop daydreaming and go back to fighting monsters. Why was this guy here and who invited him? Just seeing Jin-hyuk reminds him of their last encounter and how his embarrassing moment was broadcast all over the news. That last time must have been due to lots of luck. This time, since he's alone, there'd be no problem taking him out and putting him in his place. With that in mind, he rushes towards Jin-hyuk in hopes of fixing his nasty habit of being at the worst place at the wrong time. Unluckily for him, the C-rank hunter notices him far too early and manages to counter his attack, sending Endoyen flying and knocking him out yet again. He's too busy to entertain this random crazy guy. Meanwhile, Sang-ho stares down a rampaging minotaur. His mana is almost gone and he's out of stamina. The minotaur raises its club to attack right as Sang-ho entertains the idea of retreating and regaining his stamina. But before it can hit him, a voice calls out behind him, and Jin-hyuk jumps in from above, grabbing the minotaur by the horn and slamming it into the ground. For a C-rank hunter to take down a minotaur in one hit, it looks like his judgment about Jin-hyuk was right on track. As he takes down the monster, Sang-ho approaches him to show his appreciation for the help. Jin-hyuk tells him that the guildmaster secretary called him and promised a hefty pay in return for his help, so there was no need to thank him. Sang-ho then takes this chance to once again ask him to join their guild. If he joins forces with them, then opportunities like these will keep popping up. Jin-hyuk takes a moment to consider it, then tells him that once they finish up the remaining monsters, then he'll think about it. As they're talking, Sang-ho gets a call from Hyena. She tells him to look at the sky. The clouds had turned back, and the weather had become fiery with lightning. Something huge and menacing was lurking in the clouds, and it did not look friendly. It shoots lightning down at everything, both monsters and hunters, and damages buildings as it flies around. It's so high in the sky that there's no way their skills will be able to reach it. That means that there could be no way to attack it. Sang-ho suggests going back to his guild to assess the situation and invites Jin-hyuk to join him. He reluctantly agrees, and together they meet back at his office. From there, they run different tests and see that nothing they've done so far has been able to affect it or defend against its attacks. Everything they've done so far to stop it has been nullified or destroyed. They need to find something with a huge amount of firepower that can also destroy things from a long range. Lucia immediately comes to mind, and he realizes that there might be a way to bring it down after all. As Jin-hyuk leaves to get Lucia, the executives of the Titan Guild come together to talk about how much favoritism Sang-ho is giving to a C-ranker. The other guild members try to think of other ways to bring the monster down without relying on Jin-hyuk, but there's just no other choice in the matter. All other methods are guaranteed to fail, so the only option left is to trust in the only hunter with an idea. They could call another guild named Gadia, which is a large guild filled with A ranks and higher mages. Unfortunately, those guys don't care about casualties, and calling them in will surely result in many deaths. The other members in the room fall silent after they realize that they really don't have any other choice but to